Welcome back. Video obtained by Fox News of former Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro in DEA custody there on your screen as he arrived in New York City yesterday evening. Time now to bring in our Sunday panel. USA Today White House correspondent Francesca Chambers, host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio, Guy Benson, Fox News contributor Richard Fowler, and George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley. Thanks to all of you. We're going to dive into the politics of all of this. Real quick, Jonathan, I want to ask you from a legal perspective. We just heard the president yesterday, Secretary Rubio yesterday, General Keane laid out now a path looking forward for Venezuela, where if the United States is not in agreement with the interim president, the administration may very well look to remove her from power, as well as a host of other cabinet officials in that country. Can the U.S. really do that?
Yes, both practically and legally. When the president says we're going to hand this over, sort of the new Gitmo policy, give it to Marco, because there's a rumor that he's sleeping 3 hours a night. So he has a little bit of.
He needed another job.
Another job, right. But the fact is that this is squarely within the previous case of Noriega in terms of the law enforcement aspects. And they really ramped that up by having law enforcement personnel in the extraction team to put him under custody, take him to New York. That seems to be iron-plated, and I don't think Maduro is going to be any more successful than Noriega was. Now, in terms of the aftermath, yeah, presidents are allowed to regime change, to engage in nation building. You can't have a judge that says, I'm not going to allow that. That's within the Article 2 powers of the president. You can object to it. You can say that that's not a policy we should pursue. But absent some countervailing act by Congress, and I'm not even sure they could go very far on that, I think that he's in a good position. It's been done before.
Guy, here's Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on X yesterday. She writes, "This is not about the drugs. If it was, Trump wouldn't have pardoned one of the largest narco traffickers in the world last month. It's about oil and regime change. And they need a trial now to pretend that it isn't, especially to distract from Epstein and skyrocketing health care costs." That is a zinger. What do you say?
That's a pitiful response. You should talk to the people of Venezuela or the Venezuelans in New York, with the diaspora of Venezuelans celebrating all across the world. With the fall of this regime, Maduro was never the president of that country. He's an illegitimate, or was an illegitimate dictator. And I look forward to the day, hopefully soon, that the Venezuelans will have self-determination. What an achievement by our military, another flawless operation. I think politically, Jillian, the American people are willing to see the military leveraged for overwhelming uses of power, for military strikes and missions like this, so long as they are discreet, limited, and not open-ended nation building and that sort of thing. And we've seen that as a hallmark of Trump foreign policy going back to the previous Trump administration, and of course we've seen it vis-a-vis Iran and Venezuela here. For the Democrats, it's just bizarre. The Biden-Harris administration offered a $25 million reward leading to the capture and arrest of Nicolás Maduro. And now Democrats seem to be objecting to, and the DNC is fundraising off of, being angry about the arrest of Nicolás Maduro. It is completely incoherent and unserious as usual.
We have that email from Ken Martin at the DNC, if we can put it up on our screen for our viewers. Richard, is this whole Venezuela operation, as AOC says, just a distraction from the Epstein files and the healthcare cliff that Republicans face when they come back?
I wouldn't go that far, but what I will say, where I agree with Guy, is that, the American people do like swift, accurate military actions. What they don't like is the ideal of nation building. And so I think the question, what Trump sort of left open yesterday in his press conference, is America will run Venezuela, right? And the last time we heard that, while we know this is not Iraq or Afghanistan, was we heard George Bush say they'll greet us as liberators and the oil will pay for it. And we now know both of those statements are not true. So the question for the Trump administration is, how do you do this in a world in which the American people were around for that and they don't want that again? On top of that,
did you hear any answers yesterday?
No, did not hear any answers on that. And I think the other thing here too is when you think about now this enters our court. Now I think if this was another Justice Department, I would say this is a slam dunk, and I would agree with Jonathan Turley. This Justice Department has some trouble with these blockbuster cases, whether it's Letitia James, whether it's James Comey, whether it's the turkey sandwich hoagie guy here in Washington, D.C., where they couldn't land a misdemeanor case. So now there's a lot of questions on how this administration will handle the aftermath of a perfect operation yesterday, and I think that's why Democrats are asking questions.
What do you say to that, Francesca, this idea that there is virtually zero appetite among the U.S. military, among voters, for another foreign war with no end point in sight? In this case, maybe not a war, but, you know, you break it, you buy it.
Well, the president has been receiving some pushback from some of his MAGA supporters, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is one of his former close allies, as well as other Republicans and Democrats in Congress. But with respect to the foreign war aspect, I mean, we're already in Venezuela now. The question, as we go back to what Richard was saying, there's many open-ended questions. How do they plan to get to this judicious transition? Who is going to run the country in the interim? And going back to the question of the oil, the president says, and administration officials have said that this is, you know, something that American blood, sweat, and tears have went into, and that America should have access to this oil. Okay, which oil companies are going to go in and rebuild the infrastructure, and then who is that money going to go to? Is it going to go to the American government, those companies? How much of that is going to the Venezuelan people?
I think part of the problem with calling regime change and how negative that sounds is that this indictment is going to be a regime change. He was not the only people indicted. There's a slew of Maduro lieutenants still there.
Including his wife, apparently.
Yes, who are indicted. And so just the enforcement of the law enforcement portion of this is going to end up with regime change because the regime was the criminal enterprise. So at the end of the day, there's not going to be the same people there if this case is fully prosecuted.
Panel, we got to leave it there. Thank you all for joining us on the first Sunday of the new year. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.